It's a journey in getting to know ourselves better. It's just life is different now. The way, the pace, what's available, how long we live, all of these variables are impacting now what's possible for us, right? What we could do. Purpose and meaning live within the willingness, the courage to start. We can only control those things that are in our control. And the things that are not in our control, well, we just need to be able to distinguish them from the ones that we can control. Yeah. And I think you do get some epiphanies, but all that is the opening of the door. And then you got to walk through it. And then you got to go on the quest, right? You got to venture forward and uncover and discover. Each of us have a creative process. There are steps that we take to get through moving an idea into something that can actually be experienced by others in the world. It's important for each of us to understand what our creative process is, because it's slightly different for each of us. Creativity needs boundaries because they have it, that system and structure and process restricts creativity and prevents it from happening. And it's actually the opposite. Right? Once we embrace that, we become more creative.
All right, welcome back, Wellness Ninjas, to another episode of the Wellness Dojo Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Craig, and today I'm really excited to have a good friend of mine here, David Schmeikal. He's a creativity coach and just a really inspiring dude. David, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you on. I'm excited to pick your brain about all things creativity. So, before we dive into creativity and all that kind of stuff, when people hear creativity coach, what is that? What does a creativity coach do?
Yeah, I think we do a lot of different things, but at its core, it's just to remind each of us that we've got these innate talents within us that are usually underutilized. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's, teaching somebody how to draw or paint, although that could be an output of it, right? But it's really about dialing into what is it that we are really interested in and have some passions around, and maybe are grappling with doing more of it, or dealing with the inner narrative that's going on. So it's a mindset game in a lot of ways, right? But it's really about channeling at the end of the day. What is it that we've always wanted to do more of, and then do more of that thing.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting thing, because some people, I think we've built this in our mind that you're either a creative person or you're not a creative person, right? Totally.
Yeah, and that's couldn't be further from the truth. That notion of right brain, left brain thinkers, if you're more left brain, you're more creative. I can't even remember which side of the brain it is, and it's actually been proven that that's not actually true. We all have our inherent strengths without a doubt, but that doesn't mean that we don't have the other stuff either, that it's not available to us, right? And it can be like anything, nurtured, strengthened, improved on, right? It's just a matter of, do you want to?
Yeah, and I find that super interesting, because I've floated even in my life back and forth on how creative am I, and am I that creative person? Am I not that creative person? And it feels like different moments in life, the different chapters that we go through, we seem to, I don't know, explore it more or feel it more, or
be ready for it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, when I think about my journey, creativity was everywhere around me, but it was from a lens of a hobby, something you do on the side, not your primary vocation, not your primary focus. But that's not the truth either. And if there is something that you really want to pursue, we got to create the space. We got to have the right people around us to enable that to happen. And while it was, it was encouraged, I do wish I had the right people in my corner to encourage it to be more of a focus, because deep down I did want to do more of that. Right?
Yeah, and just like off the top here too, I want to encourage people to go and check out your website, because you have this incredible video biography that you've put together that people, they need to go and see it, because you have this incredible story about just kind of how you got to where you are with your creativity. And so if you haven't seen it already, go check it out. I don't want to kind of take you down that path right now, because people can go and see it.
Absolutely.
It's
a big journey for sure.
Yeah, but just really inspiring to see how you navigated life through your challenges, through those struggles, to find that creative space, to find that creative energy multiple times, right? It's just really cool. So please go check that out for sure. And maybe we can talk just like a little bit about what it takes to find that, because I think there are a lot of people who are, probably listening to this right now, who are like, I know that I have some creativity in me, but it's just like putting themselves out there is maybe hard, or they just don't know how to explore it and how to navigate that.
Yeah. Well, it starts with the inquiry. There's the question that we ask ourselves, and it's a question that we likely have been quietly asking ourselves for a long time and haven't given it a whole lot of airtime, right? It's been a deprioritized, a nice to have, but not our main area. And so we're never giving it enough time and space. And I think the best way to give it time and space is to just ask ourselves questions about ourselves. It's a journey in getting to know ourselves better. This society does not really encourage that type of work, not by default. I think for those that do pursue more of a self-discovery, which in today's world, I think it's fundamental. They will find the resources, the tools, the support to enable that to happen. But the majority are not encouraged to do that. In fact, the majority are encouraged to just find their place in the world that makes the most sense based on what they understand right here, right now, and just do that. That's the thing that you do forever and ever. And everything else it's just not, there's really no time and space for it anymore, right?
Yeah, it feels like the world wants us to prioritize, it sounds funny, but responsibility.
Yeah.
Right? It's like we have to make sure that we've got all of our finances covered so that we can pay for these things. It's like once all these things are sorted out, then there's time to play. Then there's time to be creative.
That's right. That's when you retire all of these constructs that are made up and that are outdated, really, for all things said. There was a time and place for it, generations past, and it's just life is different now. The way, the pace, what's available, how long we live, all of these variables are impacting now what's possible for us, right? What we could do, and what we should do when it becomes that thing that just can't be denied. Even through our best attempts at denying it, it keeps showing up. It's the elephant in the room, right? The little monster in the corner that just won't go away. Those are the things that we really want to double down on.
Yeah.
Right. It's unrealized, and it's being asked to be realized in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. There's this real contrast, I think, in the world of like you mentioned the word retirement, right? I've been thinking a lot about that. I was having a conversation recently with one of my mentors about retirement, and we were talking about how this idea of retirement for us just felt so like misaligned. It's like at this point in my life right now, like I could like confidently say like I probably never want to retire. And by like the word retirement kind of meaning stop.
Right.
Like I never want to stop. And like I always want to have a purpose to work for and an outlet to express myself and those types of things. Whereas a lot of people think of that as like you work so hard so that you can kind of stop and relax and those types of things. It just doesn't feel like right to me.
Well, and there is an element, a necessity to it, right? When I think about the clients that I am focused on working with right now are those that are in a transition and are either exploring retirement or have been in this notion of retirement and have time and space for what's next, and maybe have done the thing to rest and recharge and are in this place of restlessness now. It's like this can't be everything that I'm doing forever and ever. Like there's only so many golf courses that you can go to. There's only so many camping trips that you can, like there's a time and place for those things, but it can't be the new normal. It can't be the thing that you always do, because then it becomes, there needs to be something that now offsets it, right? The other thing that you look forward to. We're by design, I think we're never really satisfied with what we've done or what we're doing or what we've achieved. We're always seeking what's next. This is the elusive, the mountain without a top, the belief that once I achieve this thing, then I'll have everything that I want, and life, I'll have achieved my biggest achievements. But we're always looking for the what's next. Once we hit that milestone, it is always okay, so what else can I participate in? And I think for men in particular, it's even more so. I mean, I can't speak for women because I'm not a woman, but I do believe that men really do need to anchor themselves against something of purpose, of reason. It's not just doing something just because. We need to know why we're doing something, or at least there's a generation of men who are starting to really appreciate how important that is. Not that it's vital. There are some that will always do what they've always done, and they're actually quite content with that, and that's great. That doesn't mean that that's what your future needs to look like either. Right? Especially if you've got the unresolved narrative in your head that's constantly chattering in your ear about things, right? I feel that for sure. What comes to mind for me really is I talk a lot with my clients about like goals and purpose, right? Whereas I think for a lot of people, when they think about their life, and there's always like this end goal, retirement. My goal is to be retired by the time I'm X, right? And then you get there, and then like you said, it's like, okay, but now what? What's next? What a great question, right? But also a really hard question to ask if you're not ready for it. So how do you get ready for it? Right. And like, do you think purpose is a big part of that? Like, because I've always seen it as a goal is achievable, but when we are working towards purpose, it's kind of like that mountain without a top. It's like purpose is never something that you get to, right? It's just something that you're continually working towards. Is that something that you are kind of navigating with people as well? Is just like really trying to help them refigure that purpose out when they're at that stage? Yeah, I mean, they've gotten to that point in their life and they've achieved many things. And the ones that I'm working with, there is a particular conversation happening, unfolding for them that is, I'm not done yet. There's more for me to do here in the world, in my life, in the industries that I've participated in. Could be whatever, and I just don't know how to begin. And there, it's the challenge, because you've been used to doing life a certain way, right? You've mastered that, in fact, to operate as to assume the identity as this particular type of person in the world, right? As a leader in the organizations that maybe you've participated in, or in the communities that you've participated in. And then that ended, the chapter of that story was complete. Now we're faced with an empty book, right? Blank pages. For any writers out there, blank pages are scary, right? Yeah. Like it's a challenge to start it. And purpose and meaning live within the willingness, the courage to start. We might have an idea, a hypothesis, right, of what we think we might want to pursue. And then it is in the pursuit of that where we uncover and validate that yes, it is, or no, it's not, or we find ourselves going in unexpected directions as a result of taking those steps. But to think that we could define purpose before we do that journey, we take those steps, it's actually not it yet. And I thought that that's how it had to go as well for me. It's like I needed to be clear what my end objective was going to be, and then I would work towards that. And anything that did not align with that end objective, I would not entertain it. But therein lay the missed opportunities, because I actually don't know if that's the thing.
Yeah.
I think it's the thing. There's a feeling that is validating that it could be the thing, but I've not been there yet.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's the thing, right?
Yeah.
But in the steps that I've taken, right, when I look back at my own journey, it's not that I have veered off the trajectory of this path in extreme ways. I've taken roundabout paths that ended up having me join back on the main road again a little bit later. But then the perception was, oh, I'm off track. I wasn't off track. I was never off track. It was necessary for me to go that way because of the things that I picked up along the way to support me on that next part of my journey. And I think that is, if we reframe it that way, that purpose and meaning just reveal themselves along the way, we free ourselves a bit more of the pressure, right? To succeed. What is success? We have so many successful people on books, on paper, say success isn't what I achieved. Like I have everything that I could ever want, and I realize it's not it, right? So, okay, cool. Then what is it? And it's not to say that we don't want to pursue those things. They're necessary things, right? But it's not the thing. So it's there is no black and white answer to these conversations, and that's the exciting part, because we're not black and white either. Yeah, we are rich and complicated perspectives and personalities and points of views, and it just needs time and space to be nurtured and guided along the way.
Yeah,
right.
It's beautiful. I can actually feel you like speaking into my soul right now as like somebody who's going through a very transitional phase in my life. It's something that I've really had to accept and almost shift my perspective in different areas where it's like, like you think you had it all figured out, and then life goes, actually, let's try this. Actually, let's like this twist and turn, and that acceptance of kind of it is what it is, and there's no like right or wrong, right? Like we're so conditioned to think like there's a right way and a wrong way. There's a right decision and a wrong decision. And I think with no matter what decisions you make, there's going to be this pain that comes with that decision. There's going to be this love and this triumph that also comes with it, and this pleasure that comes with it. But knowing that like no matter which path I take, there's just going to be lessons along the way, and it's going to teach me more about myself.
Yeah. Right? Well, and we get to be responsible for the steps we take, and the outcomes that happen as a result of the steps we take. It isn't the circumstance are the circumstances, and some of them are in our control. A lot of them are not in our control. I had a conversation with a good friend of mine just last week about the state of the world and the state of Canada and just what his perception of his life, where he's not in Canada right now, and that it was good. It was a good life, is a good life. And the assumption was that everybody is experiencing their version of that for themselves, when the truth of the matter was quite the opposite, right? And then how do you navigate that with the burden and the guilt and the concern and the worry? And I'm reminded of the serenity prayer. We can only control those things that are in our control. And the things that are not in our control, well, we just need to be able to distinguish them from the ones that we can control, and be in power around those, and take action, decisive action on the things that we can control to move it forward. And everything else, man, like, we hold a lot on our shoulders. And I think as men in particular, we hold a lot on our shoulders because we are the providers. We are the rocks. We are the ones that our family counts on. And it doesn't always work the way we had hoped. And then the managing of those expectations can be a real heavy weight on our minds, right?
Yeah.
So all of this impacts our decision in the moment to do something new, to do something else, to be okay with what was, and to take along with you everything that you've acquired up until this point, because they were all valid tools, resources, perspectives. But focus on moving forward from here now, right? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, and I think it's a difficult thing for a lot of people, in a lot of different situations, because with moving forwards, oftentimes that comes along with grief. Whether that's saying like, this job doesn't align with me anymore, and I'm really feeling pulled that I need to step away and go into this other thing that makes me feel really good. Right? There's a lot of grief that comes along with that. I built so much in this career.
Yeah,
I built all these relationships and, all this work that I'm leaving behind. How does somebody kind of navigate that? I want to say one more thing with that is, when I did watch your video, and I've watched it a few times, the one thing that I really found inspiring was this, what appeared to be this innate ability for you to just like follow that voice, that kind of that pull, whether it was going through your surgery and like just having this voice of like listening to, like you mentioned something about you have to make a decision on like listening to the right person or whose truth you listen to.
Yeah, totally.
But I really feel that you've been able to listen to your truth, and I think that's something that people struggle with everything, all the overwhelm.
Well, it's so noisy.
Yeah,
so noisy. There's no time and space, and this is all by design, depending on what rabbit hole you decide to go down.
Yeah,
we have these devices that are designed to hold our attention, not just hold it, but like a death grip on it,
and manipulate it,
and manipulate our perception of how things are and what things could be or need to be, like all of these things. And this isn't new. This is we deal with all of these types of things forever. It's always been a variable to account for, and so we got to carve time and space for ourselves, to be in silence with ourselves. This is not easy to do because we're used to the noisy world of our social media. It's like white noise, right? I don't know if you've ever done what are they called now? The isolation chambers.
Like the silent retreats and stuff like that.
To be with only yourself and to have nothing interfering is a discipline, right? It's a muscle to build. And for me, it lives inside of writing. And in having conversations with people, when we are willing to have uncomfortable conversations about things that are important to us with the right people, they have to be the right people. There have to be an alignment of values present. And for that to happen, we need to know what our values are, right? And so it is an iterative process of testing some assumptions on who we think we are and what we think are important to us, and then validating that or getting feedback on it based on conversations that we have. And then from there, we can tune in to that intuitive voice that's there, that's always sharing something. There's a book that I came across years ago from Jill Taylor Bolt, and she's a brain scientist who experienced having a stroke and had the left hemisphere of her brain turn off. And so, and I guess the creative side is on the right side. Logical thinking, critical thinking were gone. And all she was with was on the right side of her brain. Like, she lost all of her innate skills that we take for granted, the ability to speak and write and communicate. And she was just in pure bliss for 8 years. Yeah. And after she came out of that, well, she revealed, because of her specialization in the brain and that being her focus, that there are these 4 characters, right? The 4 hemispheres of the brain, the character that is always striving to get shit done, the character that is overly critical, wants to keep you safe, the character that is tapped into the all-knowing power source, whatever your belief might be. We are bigger than just ourselves, like we're connected to something bigger. And then the creative self, right? The one that is out there just eagerly exploring and excited at uncovering whatever it is that we uncover. Those 4 characters are with us on this journey, right? This journey of life. And for each of us, there's a dominant character. For me, it was my inner critic and my get shit done character. But it was mostly my inner critic, right? And it was a byproduct of my environment, of the influences of what I was raised to believe, and all the complications that was, that had me show up in the world in a certain way. But as I started to understand myself more, and this is a 15-year process, right? Like, this is not you go to a seminar and you have your coming to Jesus moment. I think you do get some epiphanies, but all that is the opening of the door. And then you got to walk through it, and then you got to go on the quest, right? You got to venture forward and uncover and discover. And that's been the journey, right? Is uncovering and discovering and validating what I thought it was that was important to me against what was actually happening in the world and how I was reacting to those situations. And then reflecting back, I do a lot of writing. It's one of my primary outlets. To double check, right? Check in with myself and go, is this what's true for me? Like, is it really? Like, am I excited about this? What is the discord that I'm experiencing right now? Or this turbulation in my mind, in my gut, right? This feeling of being off. Like, those are the signs that we just don't pay attention to or dismiss as insignificant. And they are very significant. They are trying to tell us something.
It's super interesting the way that you describe that, because in my mind, even as you were talking and as our conversation was just kind of steering different directions, I was thinking, somebody who's listening might go, what does this have to do with creativity? We're just talking about like life and how life changes and stuff.
Totally.
But I think we forget that creativity is not just something that we give to the world. Creativity is something that we discover. Like that discovery piece is so important.
Yeah.
Right? Questioning our beliefs and our values and allowing those beliefs and values to change as our life changes too.
Well, think about all of our biggest innovations that have propelled humanity forward, positively or negatively. They have come from an idea, a notion in someone's mind, and the audacity to go, we should see if we could do this. Like this could totally be done.
Yeah.
Right. Despite all the naysayers, those that said flying was not possible, that the radio was a fad, and that the internet would die out. It's like, or cars, would never replace a horse.
Yeah.
Yeah. These are significant moments in our journey in humanity. Right. And each of us have a creative process. There are steps that we take to get through moving an idea into something that can actually be experienced by others in the world. A lot of the time it's just organic, and it's not, we're not prescriptively following steps, right, in a procedure. But I would say that it's important for each of us to understand what our creative process is, because it's slightly different for each of us.
Yeah.
And once we understand our creative process, because that was the exercise for me just this last year, is, okay, I spent 15 years in the creative industry helping others create stuff from nothing, right? An idea that just became something in the world. And what was it that I did? What were the steps that I took? How could I guide somebody through this process for themselves and begin to define their creative process for themselves as a result, so that they can be more intentional with their creativity?
Yeah.
Because that's the real opportunity, is the intentional channeling of our creativity.
Yeah.
Artists do this. They are the personification of it, right? They have idea, they have concept, and they put it on canvas, and we admire and are in a wowed astonishment of just how they can do that. But that's because they know what their creative process is.
Yeah.
Each of us have a creative process. This is a creative process, right?
Yeah.
Any big idea that we have requires a creative process.
Yeah. So it's interesting because those barriers start so young as well.
Absolutely.
Something that comes to mind for me, I was telling you off camera, I've been working for a nonprofit. So I work with youth, and we build and facilitate programs for youth who are maybe, maybe lower income families, or just different situations like that. I was sitting talking. We do this after school program, and so we put together these activities. And it's at the school. It's just like before they go home at the end of the day. And I was sitting. We were looking at the menu in the cafeteria, and this youth had said to me, like, I don't understand why they don't put spaghetti on the menu. Like, spaghetti would be so good. And so we were kind of talking. I'm like, well, maybe it's too messy. Like, maybe that's their idea. It'd be too messy with all the kids. And they said, well, they have fettuccine on there. I'm like, well, that's a good point. And I said to this youth, have you taken the idea to the office? Like, have you talked to anybody about it? And their response was, no, they would never listen to my idea. Right? And it's like
that's
this,
what kills creativity.
This immediate block. And I said, well, you don't know that. I said, you'd probably be very surprised at how appreciative they would be to have youth like you coming and giving them these ideas.
Yeah.
And it was just an interesting thing that popped in my mind, is talking about that, and how, we build these blocks so early in life. But like you said, you have to figure that process out, and then once you do, you can practice it, right? Like I talk about discipline a lot with my martial arts background, and I think a lot of times when we think about creativity and discipline, we think that these two things are like battling each other. It's
right.
like you're either disciplined or you're creative, but you can't be both.
Yeah.
But really, that being disciplined and doing the work, doing that discovery, that exploration, and then once you do discover it, practicing it and trying it and building the foundation, that really like sets the foundation to let your creativity just expand.
Creativity needs boundaries. It needs a container.
Yeah.
If you've ever been told to come up with an idea, any idea, it doesn't matter, just come up with something.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a paralyzing notion.
So overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, and I would even go as far to say is why?
Yeah.
What's the point? It lacks purpose. There's no direction. Give me a reason to create. And so we need boundaries so that we can channel our creativity with intention, right? With meaning. And inside of that meaning, there becomes value, right? It is valued because we gave it structure. So yeah, it's an interesting conundrum, a bit of a paradigm that those in the creative industries grapple with lots, because they have it that system and structure and process restricts creativity and prevents it from happening. And it's actually the opposite, right? Once we embrace that, we become more creative.
Yeah. So what are some of those kind of boundaries and kind of structural pieces that somebody who's listening to this, maybe who, like you said, maybe they're in that transitional phase in their life, whether that's retirement and trying to figure out what's next, or maybe it's somebody like me who's transitioning in their life in other aspects with relationships and stuff, and just trying to figure out, like trying to get those kind of like the guardrails up a little bit to focus in on their creativity, their passions, their purpose.
Yeah. Well, I believe each of us have a body of work inside of us, right? There's this experience, the culmination of our background, our experience, our point of view, the insight that we bring that is waiting to contribute to enable it to be a contribution to others, right? Whatever that looks like. And for those that have been in professions for a very long time, I think they are in a very unique position to really do something about everything that they have learned and acquired over a 20, 30-year career, right? To not diminish the value of everything that they've achieved, and instead look at it and go, what would I share? What was it all for? What was the point? Yeah, you had a career to pay the bills, but there was more to it. There's a reason, there's a deeper reason as to why you decided to stay there beyond the responsibilities that you know that you have to account for. And it expands further past the role that you assumed as well, right? It's complex. And now it's about uncovering. So if I'm not done yet, what am I here to do with everything that I've acquired?
Yeah.
What could I do? How could I contribute to the next generation, to those that are walking the path behind me, right? The things that I have uncovered will serve them. And start there, right? To look at and have the conversation with yourself about listing all the things that could look like. And once you start going, you're going to find yourself in another situation, a challenge. You've got so many things to do, so many possibilities. Then it's about dialing it in, right? Really honestly looking at this big old list, and it'll get big, and paying attention to the intuitive, that that one right there it's something about it is really lighting me up. I can't explain it. I got the flutter in my stomach, right? Like, that's where you start. And it could accommodate all the other things that you've listed on there, but that's your starting point, right? That's your ground zero again to build moving forward.
I love it because you're speaking to the coach in me as well, and it sounds like this is the same way that you are, but just being that really like client focused coach where it's like, you know, the answers, I don't. Let me help you kind of navigate it and find those things through great questions, great conversations.
Yeah, it's an exploration.
Great experiences, right?
Yeah. It's necessary. And we can do that for ourselves. We're capable of doing it. We're more effective when we have a sounding board of others, right? Because we'll get caught up in our own way very, very quickly.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to do the work, then having somebody like us hear from an unattached observer's perspective what it is that you are experiencing and exploring, we get to then put in front of you some of the things that you might not have caught very easily or dismissed. Right? It's like, well, you keep talking about this one thing, man, like all the time. What's that about?
Yeah.
We miss those things quite easily for ourselves.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody about going to therapy recently, and that was at one point that I made where I was like, you know, that's really like a big piece of any conversation, whether it's therapy, a coach, a friend, but it's like they can pick up on those things that you brush over. For whatever reason, we brush over it, but they might say like, tell me more about that.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like that question alone of just like, not even a question, but a prompt of like, tell me more about that.
Yeah.
And then when you do start to talk more about it and you start to feel it, like, oh shit, I didn't realize that I felt this way about that. Right. It's a really cool thing. And it comes back to what you mentioned earlier, is surround yourself with the right people who are willing to challenge you but lift you up and explore you and inspire you and encourage you and all those just positive things that help you discover you without them trying to make you what they think you should want to be.
Well, and there is a fine line there, right?
Yeah.
That we must be mindful of, and that's why it's important that we do the work for ourselves as well.
Yeah.
We cannot rely on, and this is another program that we get to unravel for ourselves is for me, I always look to my seniors, and it's not to say that there wasn't value looking up to to those that were older than me for wisdom and insight. They truly were insightful and wise, right? But at the end of the day, what they said had to be what was true for me, for it to work for me. And if it wasn't, then I got to look at the gap between the two and really honestly answer for myself what it is then. If it's not that, then what is it?
Yeah.
And it's not to say that then that is the truth. It's just a new speculation, a new hypothesis, right? A new thing to test and experience and then be validated or be reminded, this actually isn't it. And it's for these reasons, not for those reasons. Like, okay, cool. More and more of that just has us recalibrate, right? We get more dialed in. We're more present to the things that are important for us to pursue instead of just doing what everybody else tells us to do.
Yeah.
And it's so good to do this work. You just got to give yourself permission. Yeah.
Yeah. And a big thing for me, and maybe this will resonate with other people who are listening, I've really consciously taken time to not have outside opinions. Like I'll consciously not share certain problems and issues that I'm going through. And it's really difficult for the people close to you in your life who want to help you because they want to help you. But for me, I've really started to listen to that voice, and by practicing that, I've started to trust it. Where it's like, oh no, this problem, I know that if I need help, like if I get to a place where I really need help on this problem, I know I have people in my life that I can go to, that I can explore this problem with. But learning to trust that I actually can make these decisions, I actually can navigate these problems, and I'll be okay regardless if I make the quote unquote right or wrong decision here. I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a beauty in that figuring out process.
I would add to that in that, and this is not necessarily for everybody, but certainly has been my experience for myself in knowing how I operate. One of my biggest superpowers to help me make my decisions is in the sharing of it with others, but not from the lens of your feedback on it, right? Like your advice on it. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It is in me sharing it with you that I'm hearing it from a unique perspective now, because it's no longer in my mind, right? We're not just mulling ideas in our mind, which can be a bit confusing sometimes because there's so many thoughts going out. And when I share that with you and I hear it for myself, it serves as a validation that I'm on the right track or not because of your feedback on it, but because of what I heard myself say.
Yeah.
And that takes it shifts the narrative of support.
Yeah.
Right. As opposed to this is why I use sounding board. Like I'm a sounding board for my clients, because I'm not telling you what you should do. And unless you're asking me, in which case, I'll do my best. But in the context of a sounding board, I'm just creating space for you to hear yourself talk about your ideas and come to your own conclusions or validations that they are what I am pursuing or not.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, how many times have you had somebody who they like say something and then they're like, oh, I just heard it. Or like I've done that myself too, where I say something, I'm like, oh shit, I just heard it. Like,
and
I know
we
the
need
answer.
that, right?
Yeah.
We need that. We don't have enough of that because we're always in our head about it.
Yeah.
So, it's different type of feedback.
Yeah.
Because you're the feedback loop, not somebody else.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it sounds like a big piece of this, like discovering creativity, is one, discovering and being open to discovering, but also just that self-reflection piece of even like, what are my strengths? Like in this identity that I had or that I have, like what is underneath it? What built that identity? What are the values, the beliefs, the strengths, the weaknesses that built me to that? And how can I utilize that to explore these other things?
Exactly.
Right?
And we realize then we have so much at our disposal, that we are so much more capable than we initially realized or gave ourselves credit for.
Yeah.
I diminish the value of what I know regularly because I think that everybody else knows what I know. I get trapped in this all the time. And we don't even realize that we're trapping ourselves in it. Most of the times I don't even notice that that's what I'm doing. And it isn't until I'm talking to somebody else and they're like, dude, like, what are you doing with this? You got to do something with this. I'm like, do something with what?
Yeah.
It still happens to this day.
Yeah, same.
It's ongoing. But that's the exciting thing. That means there's so much to do then, isn't there? So pick the game that you want to play and go forth and create.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the game right now.
Yeah.
Just go do it.
I love that. So much great conversation here. One other thing I just wanted to touch on before we kind of start to wind things down a bit. What kind of tips do you have for people for staying accountable? Obviously, having that person in your life, whether it's a coach, whatever it might be, that you can use as that sounding board is a great tool for accountability. What other things are you helping people utilize in terms of accountability?
Well, we are not, there are so many tools available to us to support us. And we're not taking advantage of them nearly enough. We need an existence structure. So things need to live in existence outside of our mind, outside of our email box, because they're not reliable. And so an existence structure for your thoughts and your ideas, there's a term now out there called personal knowledge management, PKMs. Like, there are tools to support you in aggregating everything that you've acquired over your lifetime of doing and being, right? And so that you can take advantage of it and do something with it. And time management. We have a horrible relationship to time, like a horrible relationship to time. And I would say the majority have a really horrible relationship to time. And it's ironic because it is our most valuable and most finite resource. We never get it back again. But we're so flippant with it, right? Like, we just give it away, thinking that we'll just pull from the reserve of time, and that there will always be time available. And that is not true. We have a limited amount of time on this world. And so what are we doing to really channel it and account for it? Give time and space for nothing and anything, but be accountable for the things that need to be done, and have time and space for those things as well. So many times when I'm talking to somebody and we start to plan out what an ideal week looks like, they get into this overwhelm of all the things that they are committing to doing, and realizing that they just don't have the bandwidth to do it. And you can only get to that point because we'll improvise in the moment. We'll jump from one thing and then go to the next. We'll promise, we'll commit to this. We're like, oh shit, I can't do that. Do this over here. Cancel, reschedule. Like, we're constantly cleanup control when it comes to our time, right? And our commitments. And when we put a little bit of structure there, we start to realize what we have available and for what. And are we actually going to allow those things that we typically don't like intruding in our time and space to intrude? And they can't when they have the guardrails in place, and we are persistently leveraging them, using them, right? Yeah. I would say that's an important, those are two important things. We need things to live somewhere consolidated. We need to be able to manage our time, and then we need to do something about our thoughts. So a book, pages, and a pen, right? Go analog, balance those worlds out so that you can create space in your mind for all the other things that are inevitably going to come in. And then you can look at what you've written from a new point of view. Yeah. Because now I'm looking at it. I'm not trying to, whatever it is that we do when we're trying to make sense of our thoughts. Yeah. Right? It's pure chaos most of the time.
Awesome. So powerful. Any final thoughts? And then where can people find you?
No final thoughts. I think we went down the rabbit hole and explored many avenues. Yes, so thank you for enabling that. And in terms of finding me, I mean, I'm on all the platforms. davidschmeikal.com is my website, and I can provide you with those links.
Yeah, we'll link those below in the show notes and in the description. So definitely go check it out. Like I said at the top of the video too, like, go check out David's video biography that you did.
As a film.
Yeah. So it's just really cool, really inspiring, and it touches on a lot of these things that we've touched on in just this kind of short amount of time.
Absolutely.
Really cool. So thanks so much for being here.
Yeah,
I always love our conversations, and really looking forward to more of them.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. Thanks everybody for listening and watching. We'll see you in the next episode.